What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the TNT Smoke Factory. Just me here today, the host, TJ Tilford. After a chaotic end to the regular season, we now enter conference championship week. Everything's on the line for a lot of teams. It's going to be a great week. We have a lot of great matchups that we have to talk about. But first, before we get there, we have to talk about the takeaways from this week of college football. We're going to start at number 5, which is play close games, lose close prizes. I'm talking about the Miami Hurricanes. All season, we've talked about Miami playing close games. They usually were able to sneak them out. But this past week, went to Syracuse, played another close game. This time they weren't able to come out on top. Syracuse ended Miami's season, if you really want to put it that way, because when the rankings came out last night, Tuesday, Miami was not in, and they're not going to their conference championship game. I virtually do not see a path for Miami to get back in, and this is what they get. All season long, they've played close games. They were able to sneak them out, but two of those games bit them. Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Now you're not in your conference championship. You're most likely not going to make the playoffs. This is not the end to the season that the Hurricanes wanted, coming in probably, I can't remember, but probably the favorite to win the ACC. They couldn't get it done. Disappointing. Everybody wanted to see Cam Ward in the playoffs. I did too. Even though this Miami team started to, kind of make me mad a little bit because of all the close games they were playing, I still wanted to see their talent in the playoffs, and it's looking like we are not going to get that. Miami is not going to be in the playoffs. What a shame. To get to our fourth takeaway, what is next for the Ohio State Buckeyes? Let me tell you, I live in Columbus. When that clock hit triple zeros, that became the darkest moments in Ohio State football history. The city of Columbus turned into Gotham. Everybody was turning on each other. Fights broke out. It was mayhem in Ohio. You cannot lose that game, right, Day? But you did. 20-point favorites, number 2 team in the nation, probably the most talented roster in college football, most talented roster we potentially have ever seen with the weapons that you have on offense and defense, and you laid an egg to a terrible Michigan team. And you want to know why Ohio State lost? Is because they tried to be who they aren't. Ohio State went into that game and they heard all the noise about how the team that runs the ball better will win the game. The past like 22 years, I believe, the team that has ran the ball for better has won the game. Ohio State bought into that mentality, tried to be someone they're not. I'm sorry, Ryan Day, you are not a tough football coach. Just be the finesse football coach that you are. Accept it for what it is and be who you are. When you play finesse football, you can compete. Look at what happened in 2022 against Georgia, an amazing Georgia team. You didn't try and run the ball that game. You passed. CJ Stroud, you passed the ball. Be who you are. Pass the ball. Now, I know Will Howard had a few mistakes in that game. And the kicker, 2 huge missed field goals. You got to make those. If you make those kicks, we're talking about a completely different story here. But Ohio State loses to Michigan. What's next? They won't be in the Big Ten championship. That's Oregon Penn State. So you're going to get a playoff game, potentially where you were ranked this week. It could be home against Tennessee. That's how, it's projected to finish. But regardless, I don't care who you play. I don't care if somehow you get matched up against Oregon first round. You got to win it all. You don't have a choice anymore. You got to win it all. And for the people saying it's not possible, I would disagree with you. I think it's very possible for this Ohio State team to win it all. They just tend to play different against Michigan. They're not the team that they usually are throughout the season against Michigan. They play different. This game was very awkward. A lot of red zone turnovers by both teams. This was an awkward game. Ohio State, if you go into the playoffs with the mentality of being who you are and not trying to be a tough team, you can win it. Because if you really want to look at it, Ohio State's defense played very well against Michigan. Very well. They only let up 13 points. 10 of those points weren't their fault. 10 of those points weren't their fault. You had a red zone interception by Will Howard, and then you had to punt in your own end zone, which gave them great field position. They barely had to move for a field goal. Your defense played phenomenal. So you get into the playoffs. I'm talking to a lot of Buckeye fans. They don't want to, they're overreacting, but they don't want to go to the playoffs. Don't buy into that. Because let me give you 2 scenarios right here. 2017, Alabama won the national championship. You want to know who Alabama lost to a few weeks before that? Auburn in the Iron Bowl, last game of the season. No one talks about that because Alabama won it all. 2022, Ohio State, you got blown out by Michigan at home. You get into the playoffs, 1 point loss against Georgia. What do you hear about more? The loss against Michigan or the loss to Georgia? Everybody talks about that Georgia game because of how close you were to a national championship. So if you can do good in this playoff, specifically, you need to win it all. I'm not going to lie. The expectations coming into the season were too high. You need to win it all. Do I think you will? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Can you though? Yes, you can. You have the most talented roster. If you play like who you are, you can win it all. So Ohio State, you have to be able to put this loss behind you, move forward, and try and get that national championship. But if you don't, I think it's time to pull the plug on Ryan Day. To get to the number 3 takeaway, Alabama, where they were ranked this week in the playoffs, it looks like they're going to sneak in. The entire all of America is angry. Nobody really wanted to see Bama in except for Bama football players and fans. But somehow Bama sneaks in. Let's talk about it. It only happened because of the egg that Miami laid. If Miami didn't lay that huge egg, Bama would probably still be on the outside. Not even probably, they'd still be on the outside. Looking at how the playoffs are, there's not enough teams to come in that can bump Bama down. So it looks like Bama's going to finish with the 11th seed. The only way I can possibly see Bama missing the playoffs is if Clemson beats SMU, which makes Clemson an automatic playoff team. And then if they want to bump SMU down and push Alabama out, keep SMU in. But I don't even think they would do that because when you look across SMU's schedule, who really is their marquee win? If they lose to Clemson, I think the committee will give them the Miami treatment, bumped them out in favor of Alabama. So it's going to be really interesting. But as of now, it looks like Bama's going to get in. Undeserving. I'll put it that way. Yes, you had a good win against Georgia, almost let them come out, but look at your losses. Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. Are we serious? Like that is just this. It's unbelievable that Alabama's going to be able to sneak in. I will admit though, when they're on, they are a very talented team. They do have the potential to win it all. Sadly, that when they're on, but when they're off, they are off. They are off. When they are not playing well, it's visible. It's very bad. It's very bad football. All you have to do is take a look back at that Oklahoma game and most of that Vanderbilt game. Alabama, when they're off, they look sorry. They look bottom barrel. But when they're on, they really look like they can win it all. Right now, it's projected that they'll have to go to Notre Dame. We'll see how everything finishes. But if they get in, it'll be interesting to see what the Tide can do. My number 2 takeaway, the stage is set. All the conference championship games are in place, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this season ends. I'm going to start right here. Friday, Boise State takes on UNLV for the Mountain West Championship. If you don't remember, that Boise State UNLV game, very close in the regular season. Very close. Boise State was able to squeak out a win. I would not be surprised if UNLV is able to squeak out a win against Boise State and shock the world. It's going to be very interesting to see how things finish in the Mountain West. But outside of the Mountain West, still some really good conference championship games. You got Arizona State, Iowa State. Who's going to represent the Big 12? Me personally, Arizona State has been on a roll. I think Arizona State probably wipes the floor with Iowa State. SEC championship, Georgia versus Texas, a rematch of a game earlier this season. Controversial calls in that game, as we know. This is going to be really good. Who is going to be the SEC champion going into the playoffs? Georgia, 8 overtime thriller against Georgia Tech. Now, I understand Georgia Tech is a good team, but 8 overtimes, a nail biter game. Black Friday, it was an amazing game. Texas, on the other hand, went to the 12th man this past Friday, got a huge victory over Texas A&M. Huge victory. Texas played really good ball in that game, in my opinion. I like the way they used Arch Manning to come in and score that touchdown early. in the red zone. He provides a little bit more legs than Quinn Ewers does. That's an interesting 1-2 punch that they could present in the red zone. So Texas has been playing some really good ball. This game is in Georgia's backyard. It's in Atlanta. Who walks out with this one? I'm going to take Texas. I think Texas is able to kind of control the game a little bit better than they did in the first half of last game. So that way Georgia doesn't pull away early like they did the previous game. I think Georgia or Texas is able to weather that storm, and I think Texas will come out on top. Now, that will be Georgia's third loss. Does that mean they're out of the playoffs? No. The committee probably will not punish Georgia for losing an SEC championship game. They'll probably still be in, which leaves them with, I don't know who they'd play, but it leaves them in nonetheless. They probably wouldn't have a home game. They'd have to travel, but the Bulldogs will be in no matter if they lose. You got the ACC championship, SMU Clemson. Who's going to walk out of that one with a victory? You know, if it was me, I'd probably have to go with SMU because they've been playing the best brand of football right now, and Clemson is coming off a loss to South Carolina. I don't know where that Clemson team's confidence is. I trust this SMU team a little bit more. Give me SMU. Then the nightcapper, the Big Ten championship, Oregon and Penn State. Now, everybody's predicting an Oregon blowout in this game. Everyone's saying Oregon's going to blow them out. We will be at that game. The Smoke Factory will be at that game. We will we'll broadcast, we'll vlog everything. We'll make sure to get the content out. But Oregon, Penn State, Oregon by far probably has the more talented roster. Penn State, they don't present enough on offense for me to take them over Oregon. It could be close, though. We've seen Oregon play some close games throughout the season. So if it's close, who knows? But I think Oregon just has the better athletes, better coached. I think Oregon will, weather the storm, be able to take Penn State out of the game fairly early. That way they don't have to worry about a late comeback attempt because Penn State really isn't built to play come from behind ball anyways. So if they can get up early, that'll be the dagger right there. There's nothing else to see. Penn State won't be able to come back. So Oregon knocks down Penn State. Penn State will still be in the playoffs, but I think Oregon, in their first year in the Big Ten, that's a shame, Big Ten. Their first year in the Big Ten, they basically just planted the flag through the Big Ten. Oregon will be the Big Ten champions. My fifth and final takeaway before we head into championship week is that it's anyone's game. If you get into the playoffs, I think you have a chance to win it all. I don't care if you're Boise State. I don't care if you're Bama. I don't care who you are. If you're Arizona State. Everybody, the field of college football is pretty leveled out right now. There's no clear favorite. Maybe Oregon, you could put Oregon as the clear favorite for now. But other than that, who are they going to face? Everybody, I feel like it's very even in college football. So we just have to wait and see the matchups. And I think the matchups are going to play a huge role. If Bama has to come from Tuscaloosa up to South Bend to play Notre Dame, I think that favors Notre Dame, really well. If a SEC team has to come up to Beaver Stadium in the winter, I don't think that SEC team survives. I don't care who you are. It's very even now with the 12-team playoff. Home field advantage is going to be huge. The first round bye is going to be huge. We just have to wait and see, but it's pretty even. So I can't tell right now who's going to win it all. If I had to put my money on it, I'd put my money on Oregon. But Oregon, you've played some close games this season. I don't know who it will be. All I can say is that it's going to be very interesting, very fun, and very entertaining. So make sure you guys are tuned in. That's my top 5 takeaways for rivalry week of college football, championship week coming up. Make sure you guys are tuned in. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment as we travel to Indianapolis this Saturday. We'll vlog it. We'll live stream everything. Make sure you guys are tapped in, and we'll see you on the next one.